Hi and welcome to this short video from the Improving Gender Balance and Equalities team at Education Scotland. In this presentation, we will be exploring how our own unconscious bias might shape the interactions that we have with learners in a classroom setting. Before we begin to explore the impact of unconscious bias on our everyday interactions, it is important to remember that we all have unconscious bias that is shaped by the roles and stereotypes that we are exposed to throughout our lives. Our unconscious mind is a useful tool to help us identify patterns in the world to process information quickly. However, it can become harmful when it shapes our expectations of others and the types of interactions we may have with them. We are going to explore the ways in which this can happen in a classroom setting, and afterwards, you are encouraged to consider how you might mitigate this in your everyday practice. This PowerPoint is designed to explore one consequence of our own unconscious bias in everyday practice. To learn more, you can visit the Improving Gender Balance and Equalities National Improvement Hub page, where you will find our introductory guide and guides specifically to support those working in early years, primary and secondary settings, as well as lots of other resources and links. To begin with, it might be useful to consider what gender stereotypes exist about the children and young people we work with, and what societal expectations we have about the behaviours and abilities of children and young people of different genders. The two images in this slide are word clouds created when we asked trainee science teachers to think of 3 words they associated with boys and girls. You can easily identify which cloud is associated with each gender. The cloud on the left contains the words associated with boys, and the one on the right contains the words associated with girls. There are clear patterns in each cloud. For the girls, the words the practitioners came up with were related to appearance and being compliant, words such as organised, creative, and emotional. For the boys, there were far more words related to activity and achievement, being confident and loud, and more words we would stereotypically associate with STEM, such as logical, technical, and even physics. Although we don't necessarily subscribe to these limited descriptions of boys and girls and the roles that they hold in our societies and classrooms, when asked, we are very easily able to think about the roles that are expected of them. This is because the stereotypes that inform these roles are so prevalent and behave in both a descriptive and a prescriptive way. They also both describe what it supposedly is to be a boy or a girl, but also what is expected of people within that role. Additionally, these pervasive stereotypes amplify the differences between boys and girls and frame gender as binary, as two distinct and separate boxes. This can then influence the way we see children of different genders. We are more likely to notice gender differences between boys and girls as a result, even though there is more variance amongst children of the same gender. We are also perhaps more likely to subscribe to the belief that there are innate differences in ability between boys and girls, when in fact, this belief has been largely debunked. The stereotypes and expectations held for children of different genders may influence the activities that they feel encouraged to engage in, and as such, the skills that they develop. They may also impact confidence, self-efficacy, and performance. We know that there are clear gender imbalances in subject choice later in school. For example, this graph shows the gender imbalance in STEM subject uptake since 1986. The graph shows the number of entries for each STEM subject that are male. The graph shows that physics, computing, and design and manufacturing have been dominated by boys consistently, and that the opposite is true for human biology and biology. These have had many more female entries. Maths and chemistry appear to be much more balanced, but when we explore the motivation for young people of different genders choosing these subjects, we find that boys are more likely to choose maths and chemistry because they want to pursue a career directly related to these subjects, such as chemical engineering. For girls, they are more likely to choose them as a means to an end, to pursue a career in medicine, veterinary science, or nursing. What is especially interesting is that these figures have remained fairly consistent for over 30 years, despite numerous interventions to increase the uptake of STEM subjects for girls. This suggests that there is a need to explore the underlying issues that contribute to this imbalance in a more sustained and profound way. The factors that influence children and young people's career intentions and subject choice are likely to start impacting much earlier and may be influenced by stereotypes that are repeatedly reinforced unknowingly in everyday life. These stereotypes are likely to influence their confidence in engaging in a classroom setting and their belief in their own ability. They are also likely to shape our expectations which may create further barriers to engagement for pupils in a classroom setting. The expectations that we have are likely to shape the interactions that we have and the feedback that we offer to pupils every day. And this is what we are going to explore now. This table shows the findings from research exploring the kind of feedback of this. The research revealed that in schools, girls were less likely than boys to receive negative feedback. However, when they were criticised, it was more likely to be focused on the content of their work, and they were more likely than boys to be praised for their behaviour and effort. The end result was that girls had lower confidence in their academic abilities and were more likely to blame themselves if they felt they didn't perform well. This is likely due to the fact that it is more likely that they will then assume they have an innate lack of ability. On the other hand, boys are more likely than girls to be criticised for their behaviour, but then as a result of this, perhaps looking to offer some positive reinforcement, they are more likely to be praised for their work content, ideas, and understanding. This then results in increased confidence in their own academic abilities despite criticism, and if they felt they didn't perform well, they were more likely to blame external factors. Finally, the research showed that when the type of feedback normally given to girls is given to all pupils, boys also lose confidence in their abilities. In addition to thinking about the types of interactions we are having with learners of different genders, it might also be worthwhile considering who we are interacting with more. The pie chart on this slide shows data from the Improving Gender Balance pilot. 12 classes were observed of different levels and from S1 to S6. The results here are averages across all classes and show that despite there being marginally more girls on average in the classes, they are less likely to answer questions and even less likely to be checked up on by the teacher. It may be worth considering whether our expectations lead us to believe that boys need more support, or that we believe there is a requirement to check up on boys more to ensure they are kept on task, and what impact this has on quieter girls or boys who then receive less input from practitioners overall, as well as the impact on boys who receive more. It may also be worth exploring whether we are giving all learners space to speak in a classroom setting, especially if they may have lower confidence in their contributions. This slide highlights the other ways in which our interactions and expectations of learners are influenced by gender roles and unconscious bias. We may use gendered pet names, for example. Many practitioners report sitting the learners that are perceived to be more disruptive, who are often the boys, next to the learners who are considered to be well behaved, who are often the girls. This places the girls in a behaviour management role and may also impact the boys' ability to take responsibility for their own engagement and behaviour. Errands are often gendered, with girls doing more of the domestic and tidying errands, and boys often being asked to lift heavier objects. Finally, our expectations of behaviours may vary based on gender. For example, sometimes the expectation may be that boys are worse behaved and as a result get disciplined more harshly, or conversely, worse behaviour may be expected from boys and as a result excused, whereas girls may be reprimanded for the same behaviour as they are not complying with gender roles. This presentation highlights just some of the ways in which pervasive societal stereotypes and unconscious bias can influence the types of interactions we have with pupils in everyday practice and the expectations we have of them. We all have unconscious bias, and even when we are aware of it, it can still impact our decisions. Unconscious bias is more likely to have an impact when we are stressed, tired, short of time, or have multiple decisions to make. And so the first step to challenging unconscious bias is to reflect on the instances in which it may have influenced practice. Do any of the examples in the presentation resonate with you? What other ways might unconscious bias have influenced the interactions you are having with learners?